ago, I had the opportunity to meet a woman named Tao. She is over twice my age. She came from Vietnam at about the age of 14 as a refugee, and she is a practicing Buddhist. You all should listen to me today because I think that it is very important for us as college students to learn about a new religion or culture that we may not be aware about. As Tua Ray Sarbacker, assistant professor of Southeast Religious Studies, said in 2005, Buddhism courses serve as a gateway for students to gain perspective on religion and in their own tradition more specifically. Today, I will be talking about Buddha and the Buddhist religion. First, I will be talking about the origins of Buddhism. Second, I will be talking about the two main branches of Buddhism. And third, I will be talking about the different views of the Buddha across different cultures. So first, I will be talking about the origins of Buddhism. Buddhism was actually found by Siddhartha Gautama, who was born an Indian prince in sheltered luxury, who eventually left his life of wealth to find enlightenment through austerity. For several years, he practiced yoga and meditation and to eventually find enlightenment. After eventually finding enlightenment, he began teaching others and all those who came to learn his ways. He never actually thought of himself as a god or a divine being, but more as a way shower for others. A main goal of Buddhism is to find enlightenment. Something that Siddhartha Gautama actually found was the Four Noble Truths. Something similar to the Four Noble Truths is actually the doctrine of karma, which most of us think of as what goes around comes around, right? But what it actually is more of a cause and effect situation, where good deeds go rewarded, bad deeds go punished. And the main goal, going back to the main goal of Buddhism, is to eventually reach nirvana, which is actually when somebody goes through cycles of reincarnation until they pay off their karmic debt. So it's a pretty interesting pattern. The next thing I'll be going into is the two main branches of Buddhism. As author William Galloy stated, an assistant professor of Middle Eastern Studies in 2010, Buddhism is broadly split into three different categories or schools or movements. That is going to be Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, which leads me into my first one. I'll be talking about Theravada. Theravadins are sometimes considered the more orthodox of the two schools. The main goal of Theravada is to eventually obtain enlightenment. The next school is going to be Mahayana. The main Mahayana is otherwise known as the teaching of the elders. And Mahayana actually serves as an umbrella for other different schools and movements within Buddhism. And the main goal of Mahayana is to is Buddhahood through Bodhisattva, which is actually practicing your everyday life the way that the Buddha would have. Speaking of Buddha actually leads me into my last and final point that I will be talking to you about, which is going to be the different views of the Buddha across different cultures. As most people would actually recognize as the skinny Buddha is actually the historical Buddha as previously stated, Siddhartha Gautama, the Indian prince. The skinny Buddha is going to be the one who has the more serious or Zen face, and the one who normally looks like he has his eyes closed. And then the other version of Buddha that most people would recognize as the original Buddha is actually Hotai or Putai, as most people recognize in China as their Buddha. And that is going to be the Buddha that is actually the fat Buddha or the jolly laughing Buddha. And as author Michael Klasquin, assistant professor of religious studies, said in 2010, the broad grin of the historical Buddha, the skinny historical Buddha has been changed in Buddhist art with the broad grin and big smile of Putai or Hotai, which is familiar to most of China. So now that I have taught you about the Indian prince, the historical Buddha, which is actually the Indian prince, and then there's going to be the other Buddha, which is the Chinese Buddha or the Fat Buddha. Now you are able to differentiate between the two. So today I talked about the origins of Buddhism. I talked about the two main branches of Buddhism, and I informed you more about the different views of the Buddha across different cultures. So just like how I learned about a new religion from my friend Tao, and I was able to gain more perspective on a religion that I wasn't very familiar with, I hope now that I left you more globally informed, and now you are able to learn a new religion.